Welcome to our second online math lesson. Today we're doing Module 5, Lesson 11. By the end of today, you will be able to say, I can compare unit fractions with different sized models representing the whole. The materials that you need for today's lesson are your whiteboard supplies, which is your whiteboard, whiteboard marker, whiteboard eraser. You also need page 41 and 45 from your workbook. We will be skipping page 43, so you can rip and recycle page 43. And you will need a pencil. If you need to pause the video, of course, as always, to go get those supplies ready, you may do so now. And just click play when you're ready to join back in. So my first statement is, 1 is the same as 1. Think about that and whether you agree or disagree. That 1 is the same as 1. When I first saw this, I said, I definitely agree, 1 and 1 are the same thing. But we've talked many times before about how important labels are. So really, now this is showing 1 liter of soda and 1 can of soda. Each of these labels is different and represents something completely different. When you look at the liter of soda, it is obviously greater than or bigger than this little can of soda. So is 1 still the same as 1? Well, no, they are not the same. The only time that they would be the same is if you were talking about two of the same object or two things that are the same size. So it's really important, like we've talked about before, that you make sure that your labels explain what you are talking about, or when you are drawing fractions, that both of your objects that you are comparing are the same size. If they are not the same size, then we cannot compare them in the same way. So that brings us to our example here. For breakfast this morning, my brother and I each had a glass of juice. So over here it shows my glass, and it shows my brother's glass. What fraction of my glass has juice? Well, over here has shaded one piece out of 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces all together, and we call that fraction 1/4. What fraction of my brother's glass has juice? Well, there's 1 piece shaded out of 1, 2 pieces, and we call that fraction 1/2. Now, yesterday when we were comparing fractions, we said that 1/2 is greater than 1/4. But when you're looking at these two different size objects, it's hard to really tell that this 1/2 is greater than this 1/4 because this container is so much bigger. So when wholes are the same, or when we're working with two objects that are the same size, we know 1/2 is greater than 1/4. Does this picture prove that? No, this does not, because they are two different size objects. If we were to draw, or if I were to drink out of a glass that was the same size as my brother's, and I divide it into fourths, and I still drank 1/4, it would be very obvious that in a glass that is the same size, 1/4 is clearly smaller than or less than 1/2. So the point of that whole exercise is just saying that when we compare two objects, we need to start with two objects that are the same size. So what we are going to do is actually draw two rectangles that are the same size. This is where you will need your whiteboard. So go ahead and get your whiteboard out. On your whiteboard, okay. On your whiteboard, we are going to draw two rectangles that are the same size. One rectangle, two rectangles. Now, I can compare these rectangles because they are the same size. Now I'm going to partition each into thirds. 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. Okay. So now I have broken them into thirds. 1, 2, 3 pieces. 1, 2, 3 pieces. The next thing I need to do is partition the first rectangle into sixths. So now I'm going to break each of these thirds in half, which ends up giving me 6 equal pieces. 2, 4, 6. And now it's asking to shade the unit fraction in each rectangle. So by shading the unit fraction, that means I want to shade one fractional unit. So I'm going to shade one fractional unit of my sixths, one fractional unit of my thirds, and then I'm going to go ahead and label those as well. So over here, I have shaded one piece out of 6 pieces altogether. Down here, I've shaded one piece out of 3 pieces altogether. Now, when I'm looking at two rectangles that are the same size and I shade one fractional unit, I can tell that 1/3 is clearly bigger than or greater than 1/6. And 1/6 is smaller than or less than 1/3. Okay? And that is a comparison that I can do because the objects are the same size. So that brings us to our homework, or our problem set first. The problem set is page 41, so you can switch to your page 41. And it says, label the unit fraction. So on our example here, the first thing they did was label the unit fraction 1/4, because they have shaded one piece out of 4 pieces altogether. In each blank, draw and label the same whole with a shaded unit fraction that makes the sentence true. So they came over here and they made a whole that was the same size as the one over here. The only way we can compare the two fractions is if the wholes are the same size. Then they had to shade a unit fraction that makes the sentence true. So 1/4 is less than 1/2. That is true. This shaded area is smaller than or less than this shaded area. And then it just says here, there is more than one correct way to make the sentence true. So that brings us to number 1. Number 1, first we're going to label the unit fraction. They've shaded one piece out of 3 pieces altogether. We call that fraction 1/3. 1/3 is greater than. So what we want to do is make something that has smaller pieces so that this 1/3 is going to be the bigger piece. So first I need to come over here and draw an object or a whole that is the same size as my example. And then I want to make smaller pieces. So I'm just going to do sixths because I know that sixths are smaller than thirds. So I'm going to break this into 3 pieces. And then I'm going to cut it in half. Now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pieces. I'm going to shade one of those pieces. So I've shaded one piece out of 6 pieces altogether. Now let's go back and read my sentence to make sure it's true. 1/3 is greater than 1/6, and that is correct. This piece is bigger than this piece. Moving on to number 2. First, we need to label our fraction that is shaded. We have one piece shaded out of 5 pieces altogether. So 1/5 is less than. First, I need to draw a rectangle that is the same size as the hole that I started with over here. Now, I need to make something that has bigger pieces than 1/5, so that 1/5 is the smaller one, because we need it to be less than. Well, I know if I break this in half and shade one fractional unit, I've shaded 1 out of 2 pieces, and 1/5 is less than 1/2. Now, we could have also done 1/3, we could have also done 1/4. All of those pieces would have been bigger than 1/5. So that's why on the last slide it does say that there are more than one correct answer. Number 3. Number 3, we've shaded one piece out of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. 1/10 is greater than, so that means that we need 1/10 to be the bigger piece, which means we need to first make a whole rectangle that's the same size. And we need to break it into more pieces so that each piece is smaller. So I'm going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces. And a line all the way across to split it in half. I'm going to shade one fractional unit. I shaded 1 out of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14. So 1/10 is greater than 1/14, and it is. This piece is bigger than this piece over here. So really, if you're doing your homework or you're wanting to draw something different, any fraction or any rectangle that is broken into pieces that is a number larger than 10 is going to make this sentence true. So over here, we could have done 12 pieces, 16 pieces, 18 pieces, 20 pieces, whatever you wanted to do. As long as it was a number bigger than 10, we know it's going to make smaller pieces. Now number 4. Number 4 has one piece shaded out of 4, 8, 12. And it says 1/12 is less than, well, we know if this is the smaller piece, then we just need to have a number on bottom that is smaller. So that means it'll be broken into less pieces, therefore making it a bigger piece. So first I'm going to start with the same shape. And I'm going to break it into 3 pieces. I'm going to shade one of them. I have shaded one piece out of 3 pieces altogether. Well, 1/12 is less than 1/3. So the thing that makes this the most confusing is that you have to pay attention to the number on bottom, because it is kind of the opposite. Because remember, the bigger the number, the smaller the pieces. Okay? But if you look at this 5 down here, we were looking for something, for this to be less than something over here. So 5, and we had to do a number that was less than 5. Does that make sense? So 2 is less than 5, so we broke it into 2 pieces. Over here, 10 is greater than, so we needed to make a number that was greater than, which is 14. 12 is less than, so we had to break it down into a number that was less, and 3 is less than 12. I don't know if that makes it a little bit easier to think about. Okay, now you can switch to your homework page. On page 45, write your name. Please make sure your name is also on page 41. On page 45, circle number 1, 2, 3, and 4. It's going to be similar to what we were just doing. So go ahead and I'm going to start the 10-minute timer, see how much you can get done in that 10 minutes. And then once you are done with that, I did not say this yesterday, but don't forget that normally if we were in class, you would be working on Zearn to make sure you were caught up with today's lesson. So if you are not caught up with lesson 11 on Zearn, then I recommend after your homework time or at some point today, you log on to Zearn and get past lesson 11. All right, guys, great job working on that homework. Go ahead and get on Zern, make sure you're caught up, finish lesson 11, and I will be talking to you later on today.